All right, Ho Chi Minh, you are on filming.
Okay, so now that you've put papier-mâché on the inside and the outside using newsprint and flour and water, now your mask is rigid, ready for changing the surface and contour. So this surface is now that it's dry, the surface is porous, ready to receive things that are like adhesives and stuff. The material I'm going to be using today is another kind of papier-mâché. It's macerated paper with some powdered glue in it called celluclay, and that's real easy to get online for cheap. I'm going to show you how to also, I'm going to show you where and how to make a hole for the elastic that's going to hold the mask to your face. So I'll just start with that. So I've got a number of different ways that this could be done. If you have a toolkit in your house, you might have this sort of thing. It's called an awl. It's kind of like an ice pick. What I'm going to do is just show you in profile. You want the hole for the elastic to be right at the equator of your brow. So I'm just marking that to kind of give you an idea. And then you want it to be about ½ an inch from the edge so that there's room to, I'm going to do it again on this side, ½ an inch from the edge, so that there's room for tying the elastic. Now, if you don't have one of these, you know, you can use even a Phillips screwdriver. If you just kind of, you know, give it the wrist action like that. And now, if you have something more sophisticated, this is a leather tool that cuts, that has an actual tube blade cutting device. If you have something like that, that works also. Okay? So then, when you've done that, I'm going to show you now how to mix this stuff called celluclay. It's really super sticky when you're in the first phases of mixing. So I like to use rubber gloves. And I took a small bowl, measured about ¼ cup of water, ¼ cup of water for this batch that I'm going to make. That, you know what, that actually looks like too much water. ¼ of a cup of water to start with. Oh, you know what? Well, so the common mistake beginners make with celluclay is mixing it with too wet. If it's real floppy and sloppy, it doesn't really mold very well. So they call it celluclay to kind of give you an idea that you can get this to actually act like clay. So, as you know, it's already acting like a giant spit wad, but this is still way too saturated with water. So you just continue to apply, so you kind of wedge it, sort of like if you were kneading dough and you would use the flour to kind of make the dough stiffer. That's the kind of process we're involved in right now. So Mark, if you could pause that for just a second.
All right, Mojo Rider.
Okay, so celluclay is great for building up contours that you want to use to change this into a character. But the more you use, the heavier this gets. And so if it gets too heavy, it's not going to be comfortable to wear an event like a masquerade or something. So if you want to add mass, I'm going to put on a long nose. If I use celluclay, it would get real heavy. So I'm going to use a common manila envelope to act as the starting structure of a beak-like nose, like this. It's good to have hot glue is the handiest glue for the start of all you need to do is tack it at the beginning. So I'm going to apply enough glue for that. What's great about hot glue is that it's almost instant. You can position the piece without having to hold it there for very long. Okay, that's going to add some dimension without adding a lot of weight. So there's a transition area. You want to make sure that you don't cover up the eyes. There's a transition area now that you can, if this doesn't stick, if this is so porous that the glue, that the celluclay doesn't stick, then you just take some water. I'm going to pour water back in this bowl. If the celluclay sticks to your hands, just dip your fingers in the water, and that'll act like a release. Or if the surface itself is too porous, just massage some water onto it, and then the celluclay will adhere more readily. What I'm after right now is creating a seamless transition between this cardstock that I've used and the rest of the face. Sometimes it's right about now that a beginner will say, well, the eyes, I don't like the shape of the eyes. This material is really hard to cut with scissors or X-Acto knives, so that's why we pre-cut the eyes when we were in the modeling stage with the plaster gauze. Now if you want to change the size of the opening, you can build that in using the celluclay from the edges, like you see me doing here. Okay, so now would probably be a good time to pause one.
All right, you're on.
So I want to encourage people to use celluclay like you would clay. If it starts to stick to your fingers, just keep a little bowl of water here, and you just dip your fingers in there, and that will prevent the material from sticking to your fingers while you're trying to model. When I model with celluclay, I try not to use apply a whole lot at a time, little daubs at a time, dab, 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 dab. And there's a point at which your fingers are good for delivery, but not good for modeling more precisely. So this very sophisticated tool I call a popsicle stick comes in real handy, and just like with your fingers, as long as you keep it moist with the water, the celluclay is less likely to stick to the tool. And as you can see, I can move the celluclay around more precisely with the tool than I ever could with my fingers. Earlier you saw how I used hot glue and cardstock. This manila envelope I call it is the weight of paper that can hold its own shape. And I've created nostrils now in the very, like a caricature, when you make these alterations of the features, you want to be, you know, do them as dramatic and like a caricature, so that it has more, character. So know that Celluclay takes a full 24 hours for it to get really hard, and there'll be other things that we can do to the surface. In our next segment, I'm going to get out some household decorating materials that you can easily get, that you probably already have, that we'll use to decorate this. Right now I'm continuing the process of reinforcing the nose with thin daubs of the Celluclay, so that the surface, this has two purposes. It reinforces it and makes it stronger without adding a lot of weight, and it makes the actual texture or skin of the mask continuous, consistent. Okay, I think this would be a good time to stop. So you heard me say I don't apply a lot at a time, so I'm like daub. Celluclay, if you put it on too much at a time, it takes forever to dry. It adds unnecessary weight. As you progress around the contours, I'm going to suggest that you add an amount around the holes that we made with the awl or the screwdriver, so that it's reinforced. There's another way to do that using grommets, but that's that's an extra expense, and this works just as well. So I'm just adding some clay surrounding both of the holes that are going to be used for the elastic. And then I've built up a little bit around the cheek, brow, and I've made a larger sort of dramatic nostrils. And I've put a thin amount of Celluclay all the way out to the end of the cardboard that I applied with the hot glue.
So Professor Thiel, you did underneath the nose too?
Yeah, I reinforced it under there. So there's an amount of the Celluclay on the inside and the outside. Now, some common mistakes people make that you're not going to make. People will get hasty or impatient waiting for the Celluclay to dry so they can go on to the fun part, which is decorating it. Don't put it in a microwave, because what will happen is steam will collect and it'll just create steam pockets and pop off. The weather is getting drier now, which could be to our advantage. If you're impatient and want to advance it, you could put it outside. I don't know. I don't think direct sunlight is a good idea. So if you have a shady spot in your backyard or on your patio, you put it out there, and then don't expect to do anything more to this until there's at least a day to give this a chance to dry. And yeah, this would be a good time to end this segment for now, because this project needs time to dry, and the next thing we'll introduce is other materials to decorate with.